In the top stories, Prime Minister Drew to lead meeting with community leaders amid rising crime in St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister says Vybz Kartel's visit to SVG is not political. And crowds of pro-Palestinian protesters rally and march outside Democratic Convention's third night. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Thursday, 22nd August 2024. I'm your presenter, Shanique Harvey. Nationally, Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew will convene a critical meeting with community leaders, social clubs and NGOs on Friday, August 23, 2024, to address the growing violence and crime in St. Kitts and Nevis. Framing these issues as public health crises, Dr. Drew emphasized the need for a unified whole-of-society approach. This meeting will kick off a national consultation and a 90-day campaign focused on citizen security involving all stakeholders, including religious institutions, political parties, and community organizations. Dr. Drew stressed that violence and crime affect every facet of society and solutions must be inclusive and collaborative. The meeting will gather insights to guide the campaign, with Dr. Drew committed to engaging leaders across the political and social spectrum. He emphasized that, quote, citizen security is paramount, and called for collective action to create a safer St. Kitts and Nevis. The 90-day campaign will target the root causes of violence, aiming to foster long-term peace and security in the Federation. Commissioner of Police James Sutton on Wednesday evening issued a statement on rising gun violence in St. Kitts and Nevis. He spoke of a community approach that is needed to curb the rise of crime. Speaking sternly to criminals, he said they would be sought out. He implored them to resolve their differences in other ways.
We are determined to target and dismantle criminal elements that seek to destroy our communities. The perpetrators of these violent acts will face the full force of the law. We are committed to taking back our communities and ensuring our streets are safe for everyone. To those who are lawless and are bent on wreaking havoc on our communities, we are right behind you. We are coming for you wherever you are. You cannot and will not win the war on crime. You will be defeated. Put down your guns. Stop the bloodshed and stop the slaughtering of your fellow men. You can resolve your differences in other ways. It is not worth your lives or the lives of others. It must stop and stop now.
We'll have more on this in our evening newscast. St. Kitts and Nevis is at a crossroads and extraordinary measures are necessary to combat the crisis, so says Premier of Nevis, Honorable Mark Brantley. During a national address on Wednesday night, he bemoaned the issue of spiraling crime and proposed several measures to address the situation. The Premier, who is also opposition leader in the Federation, believes that the current spate of crime is beyond the capabilities of local protective services. He called for the Regional Security System, or RSS, to be deployed. He also called on the United States to do more to stem the flow of illegal guns and ammunition in St. Kitts and Nevis. Among his proposed reforms, Brantley recommended a top-to-bottom review of the nation's security forces.
I have said and continue to say that if we as leaders argue over crime, if we continue to be divided over crime, if we continue to see crime as a political opportunity, then we succeed only in weakening our resolve and emboldening these criminals. To this end, I am pleased to say that prior to this address, I spoke at length to Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, and I also spoke to Mrs. Natasha Gray Brooks, the leader of the People's Action Movement. I thank them both for reaching out and expressing their willingness to come together to lend our collective voices and hearts to this fight.
Brantley also stressed the importance of addressing the social roots of crime. He advocated for the reintroduction of moral and ethical instruction in schools, starting at the preschool level and continuing throughout a child's education. Additionally, he called for the reestablishment of youth groups such as Boy Scouts, Girl Guides, and the Cadet Corps as a mandatory part of the curriculum. In terms of the economic opportunity, Brantley pushed for an aggressive alternative pathway program that would support marginalized youth.
Crime is and has always been a societal problem. Who are the criminals? They are our sons and daughters. They are our brothers and sisters. They are our cousins and classmates. They are our boyfriends and girlfriends. In short, the criminals have come from our midst. We have created them, and we must now find ways to purge them from our midst. My address to you this evening comes not from a place of blame or political grandstanding. It comes from a place of deep pain and a burning desire to raise my voice in the rescue effort for my country. At this time and in this situation, our country demands that each and every patriot rise up to defend it from the scourge that has now gripped us. All must be invited to the table with their ideas and solutions. None must be left out. Government and opposition, church and chamber, schools and civil society, all must be invited to the table to come up with a comprehensive plan to address violence in our society once and for all. Crime is now a clear and present danger to the gains we have made as a young nation. The enemies are at the gate, and men and women of goodwill, from Keon to Cotton Ground, must put aside petty political and personal differences and stand together to repel this attack on our country.
The opposition leader also proposed amending the country's anti-gang legislation to allow police to detain suspected gang members for up to 7 days without charge, extending the current 72-hour maximum to allow for more thorough investigations. He suggested that targeted states of emergency, modeled after Jamaica's zones of special operations, could be deployed where necessary to restore order. While Brantley acknowledged that his proposals are not a complete solution, he insisted that the time for inaction has passed. He said doing nothing is no longer an option. The St. Kitts Water Services Department wishes to inform the residents of Beacon Heights and Doors that a water truck will be deployed to these areas on Thursday, August 22nd at 5 p.m. Residents are encouraged to have receptacles ready to collect water at that time. The department also wishes to inform residents of an interruption of water service in Newton Ground and St. Paul's on Thursday. The estimated interruption is 11 a.m. today, and restoration tomorrow will be at 5 a.m. After the break, St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister says Vybz Kartel's visit to SVG is not political. Regional news is next. Stay with us.
So get up and unite.
The CPL is back for 2024. And the St. Lucia Kings are hunting for their first title. This year, it will be the best ever CPL, with global superstars, massive sixes, and incredible entertainment at the biggest party in sport. Get your tickets now at cplt20.com.
We move now to news on the regional scene. St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, has clarified why Jamaican dancehall star Vybz Kartel, the world boss, is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and has already made it clear his visit is not connected to local politics, but it is just a thing of human mercy. Gonsalves, speaking on NBC Radio's face-to-face program, said he wanted to address the issue of the presence of Vybz Kartel, real name Adidja Palmer, being in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, noting he was also interviewed earlier this week by a radio host from Jamaica about the reasons behind the Jamaican entertainer being facilitated in SVG. SVG. The Prime Minister explained Palmer's lawyer called him a couple weeks ago because he understood St. Vincent and the Grenadines as experts in the field of dealing with the issue of Graves' disease and wondered whether it would be appropriate for them to travel to SVG to see experts in this field. A team of medical professionals at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation, or GPHC, have made history by performing the country's first ever laparoscopic liver resection. The hospital said the surgery was conducted on July 25th by a surgical team led by Dr. Zhao Changyong, head of the 19th China Medical Team, alongside GPHC's own Dr. Adhikar Ramju and Dr. Andrea Kisoon. The surgery was performed on a 49-year-old woman who was diagnosed with colorectal cancer liver metastasis. She became a candidate for the surgery after visiting the GPHC in May 2024, where diagnostic imaging revealed a solitary metastatic liver tumor. The woman received chemotherapy, which shrunk the tumor, allowing the team of local and Chinese doctors to conduct the surgery during the China Medical Team Surgery Week in July. GPHC said the woman is now recovering at home and will continue her treatment with a greatly improved prognosis and survival outlook. Internationally, more than 2,000 Palestinian protesters marched on Wednesday past a park where pro-Israel demonstrators had gathered earlier and toward the arena hosting the third night of the Democratic National Convention. The demonstration, which stayed largely peaceful, came a day after violent clashes between police and protesters led to 56 arrests at a much smaller unsanctioned protest outside the Israeli consulate. Organizers of Wednesday's demonstration drew on the Chicago area's Palestinian community, one of the largest in the country, by bringing buses from suburban mosques. The rally near the United Center was organized by the U.S. Palestinian Community Network, a Palestinian and Arab community-based organization. It was in stark contrast to the protest on Tuesday night outside the Israeli consulate, where protesters not affiliated with a coalition of more than 200 groups that has the city's permission for demonstrations ended up in an intense standoff with Chicago police. Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling said those arrested on Tuesday night outside the Israeli consulate, about 2 miles from the United Center, showed up with the intention of committing acts of violent vandalism. Snelling called police response proportionate. Police said 30 of the people detained by police were issued citations for disorderly conduct, according to Chicago police. One person was arrested on a felony charge of resisting police, while 9 were charged with misdemeanors, including disorderly conduct, resisting officers, battery, assault, and criminal damage to property. Both of Canada's major freight railroads have come to a full stop because of a contract dispute with their workers, an impasse that could bring significant economic harm to businesses and consumers in Canada and the U.S. if the trains don't resume running soon. Canadian National, or CN, and CPKC railroads both locked out their employees after the deadline of 12:01 a.m. Eastern on Thursday passed without new agreements with the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference that represents some 10,000 engineers, conductors, and dispatchers. All rail traffic in Canada and all shipments crossing the U.S. border have stopped, although CPKC and CN's trains will continue to operate in the U.S. and Mexico. Billions of dollars of goods each month move between Canada and the U.S. via rail, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation. There will be other impacts as well, including on the more than 30,000 commuters in Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal who will be scrambling to find a new way into work because their trains won't be able to operate over CPKC's tracks while the railroad is shut down. Business groups had urged the government to intervene, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has declined to force both sides into arbitration. Yet CN said it was waiting for a response on one final offer made late Wednesday when it locked the workers out. CPKC spokesperson Patrick Waldron said the union rejected its last offer that CEO Keith Creel made at the table in person. Both railroads have said they would end the lockout if the union agreed to binding arbitration. And now for the weather. Present weather is partly cloudy. Winds are a moderate breeze of 13 miles per hour from the east-northeast. The temperature is 30 degrees Celsius and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are 1 to 1.5 meters or 3 to 5 feet. The weather forecast for today predicts partly cloudy to cloudy with a 70% or high chance of some showers, some of which could be moderate to locally heavy at times. Tonight will be fair to partly cloudy with a 40% or moderate chance of brief passing overnight showers. Sunset for today will be at 6:32 p.m. and sunrise for tomorrow will be at 5:56 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your presenter, Shanique Carvey.